It's a new day and a new edition of CNN Student News, and of course we are glad you're spending part of your Thursday with us. From the CNN Center, I'm Carl Azus.
It's time for the shout-out. What state traditionally holds the country's first presidential caucus? If you think you know it, shout it out. Is it Wyoming, New Hampshire, Iowa, or Michigan? You've got 3 seconds. Go! The Hawkeye State is usually home to the country's first caucus in a presidential election year. That's your answer, and that's your shout-out.
Next year is no exception to that rule. Iowa's presidential caucuses are scheduled for January 3rd. Now, a caucus is one of two ways in which voters can select presidential delegates, the other one being a primary. The difference between them is a primary is an election, while a caucus is a meeting. Candy Crowley tells us how the timing of Iowa's caucuses might affect the state's younger voters.
Josh Mahoney, a junior at University of Northern Iowa, is caucusing for Obama. It's a logistical nightmare.
I'm going to drive 4.5 hours from Sioux Falls, South Dakota, in my Toyota Camry 1993 model. It's terrible. I mean, I'm embarrassed. I'm going to come all the way down here, and I'm going to caucus.
If they'll be 18 by the 2008 election and are registered to vote where they will caucus, Iowa college students, regardless of where they're from, can participate.
If you're going to be out of state for the holidays, come back on January 3rd.
Counting on students to trek back to college in the middle of winter break 2 days after New Year's is an iffy proposition. Even in-state students who can caucus at home are a tough get.
You have to identify where they're going to be on January 3rd and somehow communicate that to your field offices there. Here's some people who you won't be able to contact now because they're not there yet, but they're going to get there soon.
Barack Obama is a hit on college campuses. He's young, he's new, he campaigns against status quo politics. More than any other campaign, Obamaville counts on the Joshes of Iowa.
And I think we're, at the right age where kind of get on board with, a new strategy.
One Obama strategist says the under 30 crowd is possibly the most highly motivated bloc of Obama supporters. The campaign has spent the better part of the year collecting cell numbers and email addresses. John Edwards is targeting proven caucus goers. Hillary Clinton is aiming at middle-aged women, considerably safer bets than the under 30 set.
I was just calling to invite you to...
22-year-old Chris Hasted, an Iowa State senior, is a Clinton man himself, but he does sense that maybe the younger vote is coming of age.
I work at one of the grocery stores here, which is mainly college students, and a lot of them, every time I go in there, it's a buzz about the candidates, who they're supporting, where they're going to caucus and stuff like that.
Some Iowa colleges are planning to open up part of campus over the break so students can caucus.
Thank you so much, Cornell.
At Camp Obama, they believe, they hope, if colleges open, they will come. A cautionary note of which the Obama campaign is well aware. In 2004, just 17% of caucus goers were under 30. Candy Crowley, CNN, Des Moines.
In 2008, CNN Student News is going to be Talking Democracy. Each month we'll introduce an election-related topic in our show and online. From caucuses to conventions, primaries to polls, we'll break down the concepts and get you ready for the big day next November. So when the new year strikes, get ready to spend some time talking democracy with CNN Student News.
See if you can ID me. I was born in what was then called Leningrad in 1952. I've served as Russia's president since 2000. In 2005, I was the first Russian leader to ever visit Israel. I'm Vladimir Putin, and here's another interesting fact. I have a black belt in judo.
Ooh, don't want to mess with him. Now, here's one more little fact about Vladimir Putin. He is the person of the year. Yeah, that's according to Time magazine, who selected the Russian president for the annual honor. Time's managing editor says that Putin's leadership is what won him the title. He credited President Putin with, quote, taking a country that was in chaos and bringing it stability. Now that we know the 2007 Person of the Year, let's learn a little more about the history of this title.
By tradition, the winners of Time's Person of the Year are the men and women who have most affected the news and our lives, for good or bad. Winners have been named since 1927, but the distinction is not always bestowed on a single individual. In 1966, it was the 25 and under generation. In 1975, women in America were chosen. And sometimes it's not given to a person at all. The computer was named Time's Machine of the Year in 1982. In 1988, the endangered Earth was recognized as the Planet of the Year. Statesmen, visionaries, and tyrants have graced the cover, too. In 1938, Adolf Hitler was the first massively maligned figure selected. 1952, a shy but determined Queen Elizabeth II represented the best of the British way of life. And in 1968, in a nod to the nation's race to the moon, astronauts William Anders, Frank Borman, and James Lovell, the crew of the Apollo 8, were recognized as the first men to travel around the moon.
Going once, going twice, sold! A copy of the Magna Carta went for more than $21 million at an auction on Tuesday in New York City. But the winning bidder will not be hanging on to it. He says he's planning to hand over the document to the National Archives, where it's been on display for nearly 20 years. Magna Carta is considered the earliest declaration of human rights, and this copy's new owner says he wanted to make sure it stayed in the U.S.
As a beacon for freedom, I think there's no document that's more important than this. There are 17 of these, I believe, now, one in Australia and 15 in England, and this is the only one in our hemisphere, and I think it's important that it stay here.
Ubiquitous, an adjective meaning being everywhere at the same time.
When winter blows in, coughing and sneezing might seem ubiquitous. And if you catch a common cold, you'll probably hear some common advice on how to fight it, like get lots of sleep, drink lots of fluids, all that fun stuff. Well, Dr. Sanjay Gupta tells us about a type of cold virus that's had this sort of uncommon and very dangerous effect on some folks recently.
18-year-old Joe Spencer's life has taken on a different rhythm. Last spring, he was a varsity jock in good health until
vomiting, chills, fevers. I just thought it was, just a really bad flu, and I'm going to get over it. But
it wasn't the flu. And before doctors could diagnose it, it nearly killed him. Spencer found himself in intensive care, his lungs filled with water, his body starved for oxygen.
I thought we were at risk of losing the patient.
His diagnosis? Adenovirus, known mostly for causing colds and pink eye.
We were very surprised when we ran into this much more aggressive form of adenovirus that took otherwise healthy people and put them into our intensive care unit with life-threatening pneumonia.
Adenovirus 14 is a scrappy, ubiquitous virus in our noses, on countertops or pens. It spreads through contact and the air we breathe. This year, it's infected more than 1,000 Americans in a handful of states. At least 10 have died.
What we're asking physicians is to be alert, not be, panicked, but to be alert.
Sophisticated diagnostic tests can identify adenovirus within hours, but doctors stress the key is recognizing its symptoms before they become life-threatening.
If they develop a bronchitis with a high fever and if they feel short of breath, they should get professional help sooner rather than later.
Spencer is still taking things slowly these days and doing a lot of hand washing to prevent a repeat of his illness.
I always thought of myself as a healthy guy, until this happened. People need to be aware that there's a killer out there.
Dr. Sanjay Gupta, CNN, reporting.
And before we go today, we've got a great story about meeting family for the holidays. Steve and Christine have known each other through work for 8 months. What they didn't know is that Christine there on the left is Steve's mother. You see, Steve was adopted when he was a baby, and for the last few years, he's been searching for his birth mother. Turns out she's a cashier at the same store where he's a delivery guy. The reunited mother and son say they plan on spending the holidays together. They say hello, we say goodbye, but just for today, we'll see you again tomorrow. For CNN Student News, I'm Carl Azus.